by popular demand, we are here. We are excited to have a distinguished panel with you today of both dairy technologists and experts in operations to really share their insights and perspectives firsthand on what is that intersection between dairy and technology. How can it work? How can you leverage it? How can you make it work for you and your business? How are they positioning their own companies to meet demands of today's ever-changing and tomorrow's global marketplace? What new innovations and systems are they implementing? What workforce issues are they addressing? And how can they grow their operations? All while we'll cover these topics and many more. We look forward to a conversation. I encourage you to all use your app. We want this to be as informational for you and your businesses as possible. So feel free to text us any and all questions. And with that, I'll invite our panel here today. We have Stephane Adam, Vice President of IT for Hilmar Cheese Company, Simone Frazier, Senior Vice President of Manufacturing at Darigold, Meeghan Jones, Director of IT, Cabot Creamery Co-op, and Anna Kinsman, Vice President, Information Technology, Aurora Organic Dairy. Also just like to point out the diversity of the panel. Dairy doesn't always get blue ribbon for its diversity, nor does IT. And here we are, 3 out of 4 panelists that are female. I think that's fantastic. Welcome. Oh, feels good to sit.
It does.
Well, thank you guys for being here. What I thought would be helpful for this group to start is you all come from pretty complex business models, and that kind of leads to your own operational and IT teams. So as you introduce yourselves, give us a little bit of your background, but then tell us a little bit about your business, how it's structured, and then how your own IT team and operations teams support that operation. Simone, we'll start with you.
Okay. Simone Frazier. I actually started my career, I've been over 30 years in food and beverage, but 27 of those in dairy. Began my career in IT, and after spending about half my career there, moved into supply chain, and now in leading manufacturing, quality, and engineering at Darigold. So it's a cooperative, pretty exciting, and we're doing a big ERP implementation right now, and it's pretty exciting, lots going on. We make a variety of products. We're a cooperative. We do butter powder cheese, and then we also do fluid milk and aseptic products, mostly in the Pacific Northwest.
And so even before Darigold, you were also head of IT at Land O'Lakes.
I had a piece of IT at Land O'Lakes, and then I also worked Keurig Dr. Pepper in engineering.
So I love the intersection, the Land O'Lakes experience on the IT side, the manufacturing experience here at Darigold. It's fantastic. Thank you for being here. Stephane.
All right. So good afternoon to all. Stephane Adam. As you can hear, I'm Franco-American, so I add additional diversity to the panel.
Great Midwest accent.
Yes. Been with Hilmar Cheese for a bit more than 2 years, so I'm still new in dairy, still learning new stuff every day. Most of my career was in consumer goods businesses, chocolate business, Mars and Ferrero mostly, in Europe, in Russia, and in the US.
Fantastic.
And my team is mostly based. The Hilmar team in IT is based out of California, with some individuals supporting the factory in Texas, but most of my team plus some remote work. But we'll discuss that later.
Meeghan.
Meeghan Jones with Agrimark, Director of Information Services. I've been with Agrimark for about 5 years. New to dairy as well. Within 5 years. Before that, it was power and snowboards. So that's where my within the IT space. And so Agrimark, we're out of the Northeast, headquartered in Vermont. We have about 550 farms. Main products are Cabot cheese, McAdam, and then butter, powder, whey, and cultured products. And my IT team is mostly in Vermont, as well as a few in Massachusetts. We have an office as well.
Fantastic. Anna Kinsman.
So I work at Aurora Organic Dairy. We are vertically integrated. So one of the things that's challenging about the technology that we manage is that we run the gamut from when the cow is born all the way to the milk at the back dock of the customer. And so we support a very diverse workforce and a very diverse set of technology, including your traditional office type technology as well as operations technology.
Wonderful. You know, I think everyone keeps referencing one of the slides we saw on day one here about 70% of our issues really not necessarily even being with the technology itself, but really focusing on people and processes. Tell me a little bit about your business, the state of play around hiring, workforce, both on the technology side and within your IT teams, but maybe even a little bit in the manufacturing end, because as we all know, that's also a skilled position that has become more and more niche. So tell us about your own workforce, and then maybe we'll talk about the tactics around hiring, recruiting, and retaining.
Yes, start with me. It's really interesting in the Pacific Northwest. We're headquartered in Seattle, so from an IT standpoint, our talent is really it's difficult because we're competing with Amazon, Microsoft. We have those big companies in Seattle,
companies, huh?
right? And so it's like come and work for a sleepy dairy co-op. So we've augmented some of those strategies and trying to as we recruit talent into IT, having to really look to consultants in some of that, as well as work with people that we can bring in. On the operations side, which is where I'm focused, it really is looking for those mechanics that have that technical aptitude, because in the past, and we've had a lot of people starting to retire now, they had the old wrench turning. That's the skill set they had. But as we get more and more sophisticated equipment in and manufacturing equipment, our manufacturing and maintenance teams really need a better technical aptitude. And so as we bring people in, we're looking at that, but we're also having to really invest a lot of time and effort into our training and making sure that people can run and operate that equipment.
Yeah. Stephane?
Yes, similar issue as you have, but with the Bay Area for IT talented resources. And I think they prefer to be on the Bay Area than in the Central Valley, clearly. So what I have done since I joined, I worked on several strategies. One is remote workers. So I would say 20% of my team that is remote now. And that's a challenge, and we keep learning how to engage them and make sure they are feel part of the team. I'm also working on local internship. So we have an internship program with local universities. So we are building a relationship. We bring young people in the team that are local and will hope stay longer with us, right? That's the other aspect of the strategy. And the third part is everything that I can do through managed service, I do. So what is not core to the business, more commodity, I move to managed service, just to leverage, more powerful companies.
Meeghan, how about you?
Within the IT section, either whatever section, we're in Vermont, so it's pretty rural. So to get help is on any side has been a challenge. Again, COVID with that disrupting. So similar, we've gone to more remote hybrid work as well. Also working with some local, started to reach out to some of the tech schools around to kind of keep that young talent and bring them right into the workforce and introduce them to a couple different options. On the operations side, again, the challenge of employees. So that team is working through our continuous improvement group and really investing in some technology, robotics that will help some of those that, no one wants to do that job, and it's some of the most injuries happen within those jobs. So they're easily, let's automate those pieces. So that's some of the transition that we have within our plants.
Maybe we'll dive deeper into that. There's some good follow-up there.
Yeah.
Anna, how about you?
So we've been focusing heavily on culture, interestingly enough. Right around when COVID happened, we participated in an employee engagement survey, and we received a lot of feedback about how to make employees happy, which is what makes them want to stay. And we acted on a lot of that feedback just to make sure that people felt heard and that they had a say in what their workplace looked like. And you know, it was a huge learning opportunity for all of us. But I'm happy to say that employee retention is quite high for us. And it really just has to do with that personal connection, really knowing our team, knowing what makes them happy, supporting them, providing plenty of training opportunities. We actually do a quarterly team outing now because with COVID, with people being remote, you know, there was a need for personal touch and personal connection, so.
Yeah, we do the same.
Maybe just a couple follow-on questions. What role does either new versus legacy systems, how does that play when you're recruiting talent? Do the 20-somethings of today not want to work on a legacy system because it makes them less marketable? Do you need to catch up in order to go higher? How does that work in your business? Simone, I'll start with you.
Yeah, mostly on the manufacturing side.
Sure.
So, yeah, you know, I think people coming in are interested in learning the business.
Yep.
So whether it's legacy or new systems, I think they're very interested in learning the business. So I don't think that's is a big deal. I think from the manufacturing side, since that's where I'm at, when we go out and recruit on campus, especially for supervisors and folks like that, getting people drawn into dairy. Mm-hmm. I think earlier yesterday they talked about don't give us a barn, don't give us the cows. Well, young people coming out of college are looking at, wow, that's really cool. It's a cooperative, you know, it's a farmer owned. They like that. However, they're looking for that new technology. So when we go to campus, we often will highlight, here's the technology we're using in our manufacturing plants. Yeah. Here is the new things that we're doing. Here's the new systems. Here's the new technology, because that is very much of an interest. Yep. And so we highlight those when we're recruiting.
No, I think it's equally, as you said, it's equally important on the manufacturing and operations side. How about from the IT perspective? How much of a weight does that carry in your systems as you recruit new talent?
Yeah, it does, especially if you separate support work versus project work. So, and if you speak about, you know, for example, you know, our ERP, if you stay on the previous version, then you know that you will not attract, you know, new talent because they are moving to the new version, for example. So what I have done really at Hilmar is I'm shifting the team from support, which is now managed service approach, and they are focused on enhancement and project. So more interesting, more business-driven project. And that's how, you know, and we discuss it later, but we have some AI projects that are, you know, in the works, which is also an attraction.
Well, it's been 20 minutes and we just mentioned AI,
Sorry.
So we hit our quota. Meeghan, how about you?
Yeah, I have an interesting mix of aging technology and aging employees. So, you know, where I need to look for kind of bridging that gap, and how do we get to that technology, keeping the people we have while bringing in new talent in this newer space. So,
and maybe just dive a little deeper into, you mentioned automation and robotics to address some of the workforce challenges. Give us a little more on that.
Sure.
What are you employing to really minimize the risk and also mitigate some of the employee loss or not being able to recruit through automation?
So previous to COVID, we brought in somebody for continuous improvement. And so we'd kind of started down this journey of how are we going to improve in the plants specifically and just get some symmetry. We have 4 plants in 3 different states, all different levels of what they produce as well as the equipment that they produce it on. So trying to level set how we work in all of them and have some consistent metrics. And so one of our cut and wrap plant needs the most people. And so that's where they really focused on how to improve within there. Again, because of the lack of resources, the struggle with COVID that sent a lot of people home and not wanting to work at a plant. So they really focused on this, looking at this matrix of where do we need to invest in technology, robotics, where do we do that? And that's where we found these points of the job that nobody wanted to do and those high-risk safety components. So we've, and supply chain delays, it's going to take us about, some of these projects are 18 months until we get the equipment or whatever it is. So there's a few things coming. And we're doing some smaller pilots as well. So maybe we can't replace this entire line immediately, but let's focus on this part here, and then we will build from there.
Anna, maybe the hybrid question. I think we've got two separate parallels going here. Talk a little bit about either what projects are you doing to kind of mitigate some of the workforce challenges? Is it automation? Is it robotics? Is it remote work? You talked a lot about culture. I'd love to hear your perspective on remote work and culture within your organization as well.
Absolutely. I have to say, I've been in IT my whole career. I like to joke that I majored in math because I like numbers more than I like people. So culture to me has always been kind of like a fluffy thing I don't understand. And really focusing on the happiness of my team was one of the best things I could do. We maintained high engagement when everyone was remote because we took their feedback on board. And I'm an introvert to make it even more complex, right, to deal with the people relationship thing. So I just really had to look at my people and understand, what their needs are, how I can support them, what projects are we working on that are exciting, how can I create opportunities to keep my team engaged and excited and focused.
Awesome. Switching gears a little bit, we're going to talk about growth. Growth is scary, growth is challenging. And when you grow an organization, there's always going to be technology challenges that surround it. Stephane, maybe we'll start with you. In your experience, what are for the benefit of the audience, what are the pitfalls to be mindful of? Whether it's growth on new build-outs of facilities, either expansion of an existing operation, or maybe even mergers and acquisitions when you have to converge to divergent ERP systems. Give us some of the rules of the road, some tips and tricks here.
At Hilmar, we are lucky because I am lucky because we have a new site in construction, right? So we have a green field that is under construction right now in Kansas. So a lot of the digital agenda that we are driving with my business partner is targeted to this site, right? So we will start. The idea is to really start this site with, as advanced as possible in terms of digitalization. So that's going to be an easier play.
You almost have the benefit of it being a pilot case before it needs to go online.
Yeah, and after I will tackle the legacy sites.
So it's like, don't pay attention to what's going on behind the curtain. It's not online, so we can test and
yeah.
I like it. Anyone else want to weigh in on that? What are the pitfalls of expansion and growth, bringing on new suppliers, new vendors? I think growth is measured in a lot of ways, but what are the pitfalls that we should be on the lookout for? Maybe some of those challenges you've all faced.
Yeah, we're doing a new site as well, so we're building a new plant, and where you would like to go in all new, we're in the middle of an ERP implementation, and we're going through many phases. The site will come up kind of in between. So one of the pitfalls is what is new there first, and what do you hold off on in your legacy sites so that you're not in, kind of halfway in between something.
Yep.
So I think that's very interesting and something that we're watching very carefully so that we don't take too much new to the new site without proving some of it also in some of the legacy sites. I would say the other thing that we're working through right now is we have a new site coming on and going through a lot of technical, innovation is making sure that we have good standards across our whole network as kind of like table stakes. Because what we're finding is, lots of plants are a snowflake. I always like to call them. They're all different, but they're all made of water. So it's really getting that standard so that we can be more successful with our technical implications and things that we're trying to do.
Anna, Meeghan?
I was just going to mention, it was in one of the sessions earlier about it's so much about people, right? And that change, and how do you bring along a new system and need that core user while they're still doing their day job. So that balance of a project team with how do you remove them from your day job or add more? Where do you add the resource and the buy-in from the others? So I think that's one of the key pieces to make sure that there's the people part.
We've worked a lot on the maturity of our technology, where we are, where we want to be, and how to get there. So I've been with my company for 8 years now, and we've continuously been laying a new foundation. So it's been really interesting and challenging trying to understand, when we had the security conversation earlier, just even best practices, just implementing best practices consistently everywhere. And doing that in every aspect of IT infrastructure, and doing it in a measured and careful manner so that you're not disrupting production. The worst thing that IT can do is get in the way of our users. So how do you switch out the foundation while everybody's running 100 miles an hour without causing a distraction? And speaking to keeping team members engaged, that is exciting because it shows them that you really care about the future, and it creates exciting opportunities for them as they participate in these transitions.
That's awesome.
I'd say just one point, sorry, Tom. And it was mentioned in the previous sessions. Change management also is very important when you have projects that are supporting growth. And I think the key point here is there is no such thing as an IT project alone, right? It's a business transformation project supported by IT, and all the change management has to go, supporting the business change. So that's key. Otherwise, it's seen as an IT project, and it's a recipe for failure.
Well, you threw the moderator a curveball because you brought up a great point that I'll now ask back to you all. We talk so much about IT versus business. How does this group, if they're leading any change management, how do they go about getting buy-in from stakeholders? CEO, CFO, it's an uphill climb, and there's a lot of data that needs to be shown in order to support a new project. So again, I think I always try to craft these sessions that they're the how-to for the audience to take something back. So any insight into how to get buy-in from that C-suite to make sure that it aligns with business interest? Anna, why don't I start with you?
So the way that I coach my team is that we're internal consultants, and our skills are at the disposal of the needs of the company. So we don't have projects that we sink our teeth into unless it's in support of a business initiative. I'm here today to educate myself on what the technology opportunities are in dairy so that I can go share that information with my partners. And really having that perspective, the projects that I sponsor are infrastructure projects that are associated with the reliability of our infrastructure. But setting that aside, really I see where the gaps are, and I reach out to those leaders and I say, how can I help you? How can I support you? So really, I think IT has completely shifted. We only drive if it's purely technical, and even then we have to be very thoughtful. But we're not pushing solutions on anyone. We really follow the lead of the leaders.
One thing you mentioned, and then we'll round it out with the rest of the group, but the IT profession has changed. It is not a back office support service necessarily. It is very much aligned with the future growth of the organization. And I know you mentioned that as we were sitting waiting for this panel. I just think it's a great call out. It has truly transformed the profession and really amplified growth within the industry. So keep pushing that mantle there.
I think the other way to get the C-suite aligned is if IT sees technology and then works with their partners in the business. So like I think of, we're looking at an MES system right now, and we're actually doing a pilot. And IT came up with, here's the technical application that we could go with, but then working with myself on the business side saying, okay, here's the pain points, here's the return on investment, and then going into the C-suite and selling that together to really say, hey, here's the benefit it can bring both from a technical standpoint and a pain point business, here's the return, and you sign up together. as a leadership team, and then that's what brings your C-suite forward.
Yeah.
I would challenge your question because we keep hearing IT and business. We never hear about finance and business or procurement and business. They are all support functions.
Yeah.
We are a support functions also to that's really what I've been doing. In all my IT job is really. And I think you said that this morning. So moving from order taker to business partner, right? Mm-hmm. And if we are real business partner, then we drive business benefit, and there is no discussion between IT and business anymore.
Yeah. Meeghan, want to weigh in?
Yeah, I was just going to say. So I mentioned, we're on some legacy systems. I'm up against some oncoming retirements, and so I've been asked to build out our technology roadmap, but that's not mine to build out, with the exception of the security and infrastructure side of it. So again, those projects we are moving forward with, but that technology roadmap has got to come from the leadership team.
Yep.
And what is the focus. So that's what we're doing right now.
Switching gears just a little bit, I loved Steve Shahadi earlier talking about, processors are my partners, my suppliers are my partners. We're all partners in this. We all need to lock arms in order to be successful. And you all have a pretty significant connection to the farm side of the business. Mm-hmm. And so farmers and processors are truly partners in this dairy products journey. But maybe for our co-op members, what do you see as the greatest challenge that farmers face in technology adoption? And how can processors and technology suppliers help in that journey?
For us, I was going to say some of our farmers are actually have a lot of technology already,
yeah.
And we are actually in certain areas trying to keep up with them, what they can provide. Again, some of our struggles are the rural nature of where we're at, and I think someone mentioned it yesterday. Like, the cell phones do not work well. I mean, I can leave my office, and in 5 minutes, I know I'm going to have a dead zone. So I think that the topography of Vermont is a struggle for us, and therefore for the farmers. And I think that's my 2 cents.
Anyone else care to weigh in?
Yeah, as a cooperative as well, our job is to process our members' milk. And they have a lot of technology on the dairy, but being able to balance our network, I have 12 plants in our cooperative with all the dairies that we have, making sure that we can pick up milk on time, that we're communicating well, that they understand, and we understand from just from a balance and a supply, a little mini supply chain, honestly, to try to make sure we're picking up milk on time and getting it processed, and just using technology and communicating with them, plant to the farm and back. Is really important, as well as our transportation partners, to make sure we're picking up the milk.
I'd say Hilmar is being a B2B business. We are less, impacted by the end-to-end logistic. We have, our dairy producer, they have their owning system, mm-hmm. and their customers, the processor, they pick up from our house. So right now we have a bit self-centric in our ways of looking at the logistic, but I see a need to have a better visibility and integration of the supply chain, and it's something that will come in our agenda in the future for sure.
And Anna, you're vertically integrated, so you're a little bit different. But what do you see in that connection between farmer and processor? How does that relationship work in your organization?
So I would say that our company, it is an internal co-op essentially, and so what I see a lot is a desire for technology, but a struggle to implement it in a dairy environment. So for example, our farms are very large, a lot of acreage. Because we're organic, we need a lot of pasture. So communicating across these vast distances is very difficult, which Meeghan, exactly right. Cell phone access is very inconsistent. Not only are our farms large, they're also in very rural areas. So communication is really a struggle. And also just providing access to technology in that landscape is a struggle. We actually have servers, inside each of our milking parlors, and protecting those servers, providing the right amount of ventilation, the right amount of connectivity, right? Because at that point, it's point-to-point dishes across vast distances. So really, I see a lot of opportunity for an improvement of the technology that can be used successfully in such remote environments. And then also, I think one thing I struggle with a lot is that traditionally, the technology in dairies is seen as set it and forget it. And people don't understand that, it's not just the mechanical side of it that needs maintenance. You're not just pulling out your wrenches. There's a technical side of it that needs maintenance, especially in the day of security where what protects you best is actually patching. So where, I've spent my career in an office environment and then I'm coming into a dairy, and of course it's very different, but a lot of the best practices still apply, and yet they're exceedingly difficult to apply.
Simone, I think this was a conversation that you and I had. We were talking about the pandemic and maybe lessons learned, and if it's taught us anything, it's that supply chains are fragile, and that there was a lot to learn over the last 3 years about supply chain management and adaptation through that whole process. We talked about stockpiling of resources, warehousing systems, diversifying your supply chain to mitigate delays. Talk to us about some of the systems maybe you're implementing to handle that real-time management. What are you seeing in the marketplace now? Has it gotten better? Has it gotten better because you've learned a lesson and have implemented accordingly? Give us a little snapshot of what maybe the last year or so has looked like coming out of the hecticness of COVID.
Yeah, the one that really comes to mind, and it continues to be a problem, but it's better, and I think we've learned a lot, to your point, and that is really around getting maintenance parts and even doing construction and capital projects. Even at this point, it's difficult to get stainless steel without very long lead times. So it's really using our systems, especially our maintenance systems, and even some of our capital and financial systems to plan ahead and look out there pretty far. And now, use our information to say, okay, I know I'm going to do X amount of overhauls. And usually in the past, we would have just kind of gone hand to mouth, gotten our parts, our vendors all together to get that done. We're having to be much more planful. And so planning that out, using our systems and data to say, we have these things coming. We need to make sure we have the parts on hand, so that we have to be more planful about doing that. And then also for a capital project standpoint, you used to be able to plan much closer in, and now we're having to look out further into the horizon to say, what are those things? How are we going to grow technology, especially a lot of these things have electronic components. How are we going to plan out our capital investments to make sure that we want to have them happen when we want them to happen, by looking out into supply chains and doing that. So it really is analyzing our data and being more planful on those types of things so that we can go into other supply chains and know how long it's going to take, because what used to take maybe a year to get a stainless tank, for example, could take 2 years now or 2.5 years. So that's really changed for us.
Yeah. Anyone else care to weigh in?
I know I'm submitting hardware orders way further in advance than I ever have before. I'm having to have budget requisitions remain open for a lot longer than ever before. We recently just submitted an order for network switches, and it came back with a 225-day lead time.
Wow.
Okay.
And so, you can imagine the cost involved, and then just working with finance to leave that open as long as possible, because it might not get here this year. So I have a non-trivial budget item open, and I have no idea when I'm going to get those supplies. And then in the meantime, of course, again, hitting on security, you have to be really careful, because once something goes end of life, you're at risk. So
We had a similar juggle with some core switches this year, but just we had something for one project. We kind of had to just move things around because of lead time. So
Has it gotten so bad? Maybe is anyone stockpiling resources to just kind of hold back, knowing that there's probably future volatility?
yes, and it's unfortunate because it's a pile of cash sitting on the shelf, right? But it's not just-in-time manufacturing anymore. So that's part of our risk mitigation plan.
Anyone else? Anyone else stockpiling resources?
No.
not really.
we talked a lot about cybersecurity today, which I'm glad. As we all implement new technology, it's important to also secure it on the back end. But there's a bullseye on food and ag right now, more so than there ever has been. What do you all see in your mind as the greatest threat to cybersecurity that our dairy industry faces? And then maybe a situational question: where should a small company start in their roadmap to cybersecurity and their plan? So, two-part question. Stephane, let's start with you.
I would say they need to start with basic cyber hygiene. That's what was said just before. Password, multi-factor authentication, patching, keeping system up to date, user awareness. Right? One user is enough. One user clicking on the link that he or she shouldn't have is enough to put your business at risk. That's that basic stuff like this is what you have to do. That's what we are doing with our vendors right now. So especially the small vendors, we are putting in place some process to first do cybersecurity assessment with them, for sure. That's a minimum, but also to make sure that they follow some basic guidelines like this.
We heard that a lot with the making sure that your vendors are of the same caliber.
Well, our customers, they do the same with us.
Yep, exactly.
So we have to.
Simone?
I would say cyber awareness is really important to us. And I think we've talked a lot about cybersecurity over the last several years. And it was kind of like you bring it in, everybody gets trained once a year, you check the box. And we've learned that isn't really sufficient. Yeah. So we've done something just recently that I think has been really successful. And it's really cybersecurity training. We do it in very small spurts. We get it, all of us, from top to bottom. Every few days, you're getting a little 5 or 10 minute thing on cyber awareness, and we're making it fun. And we're doing a lot of, all email that comes in from the outside has to be physically approved by you as another step. So we're keeping it in front of people all the time, every day, trying to make it fun. And then we've gone to a little bit of some archaic things, I think, a little bit, but it gets a lot of attention and it gets a lot of buzz. And even in our corporate headquarters, we've had some folks who've left their laptop overnight, just sitting on their desk. And you come in the morning, it's gone. And you'll go to IT and say, yeah, I've lost my laptop. And they're like, well, you didn't lose it. But you did leave it behind last night. And so it's been really great because I think they've been doing some really creative things in our IT department just to get people aware. And I would say the other thing that I thought was just pretty special is a lot of times you try to go through cybersecurity exercises where you try to get consensus and try to get everybody online. And we just went into our plants and said, you are no longer allowed to do USBs on our laptops, period, the end. And that's very difficult in an operations environment where you're getting a lot of updates and things. But we just ripped the Band-Aid off. And everyone had said it's going to bring the plants to their knees. They'll never be able to run. We actually implemented it, and surprisingly, no, the plants kept on running. And we've worked through any special circumstances, but doing it in a safe way. So I think really just doing some of those things and constantly talking about it and doing it has been a way of just raising the awareness in the organization.
Fantastic. Meeghan, I'll ask you the same question. I think, talk to us about where do you see the largest threats, and then maybe talk to us a little bit, because I love the point that Simone brought up about training. I almost see it as a culture of food safety. Our industry is very familiar with that, yes. But maybe a culture of cyber awareness and maybe the training that goes along with that. So broad question, take it where you want to go.
Yeah, I mean, we've recently made that same analogy that it's food quality and we don't want to bring our plant down either. But similar to Simone, we are training our employees, phishing testing regularly, to the point where when we we do a quarterly training, and when we set out the last quarterly training, we got a whole bunch of help desk requests saying this is spam. So they learned from their phishing not to open that link, but that was actually our link for cybersecurity training. But yeah, I mean, again, I think the people and keeping that awareness, I think, within your organization, but also for them to bring home, right? I mean, there's technology everywhere in everyone's house. I have 2 kids that I'm trying to no, you can't download every app there is. Just because I do this for my job, I don't want to do it at home either. Right. But yeah, I think it's that constant education of people.
Yeah. Anna?
One of the areas I think where we struggle quite a bit is, and I think you see it a lot in manufacturing, just software that is out of date and you don't necessarily have a lot of vendor support to address the gap without a major overhaul. So one of the things that worries me a lot is the state of operational technology and a better attention to security because at this point in time, I would say our biggest vulnerability is our operations environment. We struggle with end-of-life software and hardware for which there may not be a patch to protect against, bad actors. So that part is really a struggle. There's been a lot of development and growth, very rapid growth, in security as it pertains to traditional office environments and where those, the traditional office environment may be stretched to cover. But pure OT, there is definitely security gaps there that are very, very concerning and they're not easy to remediate. But one of your questions, Tom, was where do you start? If you've never paid attention to security before, where do you start? I would recommend a security maturity audit. If you're not very big, it's not going to cost a lot. And that's honestly one of the best things that we did because once you know where the gaps are, you can talk about the risk posed by those gaps, and then you can prioritize. You don't have to spend $1 bajillion right out the gate. You can act on the things that pose the largest risks. And interestingly enough, which this has been mentioned before, just starting with simple best practices really goes a long way. So, get your security maturity audit, do your risk assessment and determine where your money is best spent, and start with the basics, really. Just even patching regularly. Patching is extremely important and easy. Passwords, another huge thing. Now the big trend is instead of a password, a passphrase. Because even if it's all letters, a 25-character password, I went to the grocery store. That is very difficult to hack, to crack. So there's a lot of just very simple foundational practices that you can implement that won't cost you a thing. And it's one of the biggest and fastest ways to improve your security posture.
Fantastic. Stephane, any last things to add on that?
No, just one point, because we had also a cyber awareness training, but we see the rate of completion of people attending the training going down. So there is a bit of exhaustion and of fatigue, right? So we had a discussion, and I'm going to apply what you have done because I think we have to change the approach.
So the quicker hitting,
keep people on their toe and making sure they keep learning new stuff, because if we have a monthly training every month going out, but we see less and less people going through the training, which is not great.
Yeah.
So we have to change the approach.
I think just like Zoom fatigue is real, training fatigue is real as well.
Yeah.
But these are important things. I mean, you have to build that culture of cyber awareness and cybersecurity. We're going to move to end-to-end traceability a little bit, and because I think it's an area where IT and OT really converge. It is a data process, but capturing that data at every step takes buy-in and collaboration between teams at every level. Should this still be the goal? We all want it, but who should run the effort? I'd love to know in your operations, how does that work? Because I think it's very nuanced business to business. Sometimes it's presented as a CEO project and it filters down. Other times it bubbles up from technology. So give us a little flavor of how it works in your operations.
I'll start. During COVID, actually, we had, I think it was an SQF audit. And so that was what was driving some focus on traceability that we failed. So when you fail that, we're going to focus on it. And again, it really came from, the team was led by operations, and IT was supportive there, but it needed to come from operations to be run through completely. And so I will say but then we dropped off because with COVID, so we finished the one plant, but we have not followed through on as much as we should. So that is next on the list. But again, I'm kind of waiting. It's not for us to push, like we were talking about earlier. It's really got to come from the business. So,
Anna?
So we went live on a new ERP 5 years ago. And we came out of the gate, super excited. Everybody was trained. Everybody knew what was going on. And in the last 5 years, that has declined precipitously. So one of the things that we learned with traceability when it comes to data is that it's tied to the business process. And if you have turnover, as many of us have, the important thing is the repetitive training, just making sure that people know how to use the systems correctly, especially when it's counterintuitive. Sometimes really for traceability, you have to enter the same data in more than one system. People forget that, right? Oh, these days everything's integrated because it's IT, right? So that was a huge learning lesson for us is we're in the process of building out a training department, because especially the frontline workers with SOPs, who takes time to read an SOP on their coffee break? Like no one. You have to reinforce the process that ensures that you have the data correct and you have the traceability all the way through.
Fantastic. Simone?
Yeah, I would say traceability, just like Meeghan, it was, kind of lot track and trace early on. And now because we're dairy and our financial piece really is tied to the composition of milk, so that traceability from dairy and fat, solids, protein, all the way through to your finished good, and the complexity of that across with data is really where the dollars start getting driven out. So a lot of our continuous improvement or yield initiatives are all around tracing those components, fat, solids, and protein, all the way through. So that's where I really see technology providing a lot of value, and connecting that data all the way through the process has been really valuable.
Stephane?
Yeah, same. So basically what we are doing, we are removing every manual data entry point so that we have no error, and we are automating, where we can to make sure that the data flow through our ERP.
And metering is getting cheaper. I mean, it's getting cheaper for us to be able to do it. I would say 5 years ago, it was tougher, it was more expensive, but now we're able to put those meters in place to watch that composition throughout our process and gather that data cheaper than we've ever been able to do before. So.
Got it. Yeah. I've got 2 more questions, and I encourage folks to text their questions in as well, but it couldn't be a session here at DairyTech without talking about AI and sustainability. So, what all, in terms of sustainability, we'll start with sustainability and ESG. How, in your view, can technology support and amplify those initiatives? And are there things you're putting into practice already in your businesses?
So I can start. Well, I'm very proud to say that we have a sustainability department, which, to have a group of people focused on these issues is very, I'm very happy about that. But unfortunately, all of the data gathered is on spreadsheets. And we actually produce a beautiful sustainability report every couple of years. And all of that data gathering is manual. So it is a huge opportunity. And so I'm not necessarily answering your question, but I'm underscoring that there's a very huge opportunity here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and it's very, very important. Of course, for us being organic, there's that much more to it. But I would really love to see a solution that supports in gathering the data and reporting on it in a much more efficient manner.
Even real time, can you imagine that one day?
Not yet.
Meeghan, how about you?
I was just going to say, I echo exactly what Anna's saying here. We also have a sustainability group, and it's Excel, and there's so many sources that you're pulling together that it's still a struggle. So for them to work out where the data is coming from and how they capture it, hopefully eventually we will get there with being able to automate a little bit more. But I think for right now it's still
aspirational.
People effort, yes.
Yeah. Stephane?
I mean, if we're looking at the occurrences of sustainability discussion at the leadership team level at Hilmar, it's a raising, priority for sure.
Yeah.
It's one of the strategic item now as part of our regular meetings. Still a lot of work. Of course, IT has a huge role to play in terms of data gathering, data reconciliation, and producing, producing information. But it's too early to say for us.
Simone, last word on this one?
Yeah, sustainability, there's so much focus on our dairies and our dairymen are doing such a good job of working sustainability, and there's a lot of opportunities there. On the operations side, we've really engaged our operations teams to do things like sustainability walks. So we put on people's goals. Everybody's going to go do a sustainability walk, and we're going to look for loss of water in our process. And it'll be fun because I'll get pictures from people's cell phones going, "Look what I just found on my sustainability walk! Look at all this water going down the drain." And not only is it helping us with our sustainability efforts, but it's also helping us with putting anything down the drain that we shouldn't be putting down the drain. So we've gotten everybody involved and engaged.
That's fantastic. And the other thing, of course, we can't go through a session without talking about AI. So I'll broaden it, though, because I've got my own pet interests on this, too. Are you guys doing any AI projects right now, whether it be generative or my own pet question, even on the product development side? Are you guys using predictive analytics at all to guide what new products are introduced, flavors, packaging styles, sizes? Is that coming into the equation at all?
Stephane, this is your baby.
No. Well, I can answer part of the question.
First part. You were all over the first part.
So we have two projects, two AI projects running right now at Hilmar. One is predictive maintenance with sensor installed on the engines, measuring real-time vibration. And the vendor we use as a worldwide database, so we have the same. We know the same engine is used somewhere else. So that's all the power of the AI engine here. And this one is very good, providing very good ROI. So that's something we will extend. The second one is predictive analytics, working on our dryer to manage the settings of the dryer with the condition to get the best protein out of the dryer in terms of our revenue. This one is still work in progress. It's again back to change management. It's fighting operators that have been running the dryer for 20 years and what they know how to run their stuff, and they don't really trust the recommendation from the AI tool. So that's still this one is still to be confirmed, but it's promising.
Anyone else running any AI initiatives?
Very similar. Oh, sorry. Very similar to Stephane. The predictive analytics on the dryer, the operators who've done it a long time, and also being a little nervous of trusting the data.
Yeah.
Like I know if I go too far, I'm going to plug up my dryer. I don't want to do that. So getting them to, from the change management side, trust that. The other thing, just like Stephane, doing the vibration analysis, of course, to help our PMs. But because we have such aging assets and it's taken us so long in supply chain to get components, some of it is we're putting vibration analyzers on pieces of equipment that are aged, that we know that we have maybe 12, 18 months before we're going to get something new, so that we know if we're going to start having trouble, how do we do.
So you can build in your own lag time.
Do we need to do field repair before we have a catastrophic failure? So we're using some of that data to just help us to kind of limp along until we can get the components we need.
Well, you talked about that catastrophic failure. I'll segue into this question. Do any of your plants work 24/7? And if so, how do you handle a restart, a patching, replacement, that catastrophic failure? How does that all work?
Painfully. Yeah. We're all 24/7.
Yes.
Yeah.
All 12 of my plants
Yep.
are 24/7. So it's very careful planning. It's balancing within the network. And it's, in fact, I was just talking to IT about we really need to set up the patching timing. It's always like, hey, can we get the plant to go down? I said, really what we need to do is turn it around, and for us to say we need to do it, every quarter or every Sunday at 3 a.m. in plants, you're going to have to just adapt, and we're going to have to go to some offline work and then catch back up and make that a routine. So we're getting there, but we're having to, instead of having the plants drive the patching, we're trying to turn it around and saying IT needs to say this is how we need to get it done, and then we just need to plan better.
Got it.
So the 24/7 was my big aha moment when I joined dairy. Because
right.
then I realized, there is a milk wave and you don't stop the factories. And then that's when I started to look at the infrastructure in the factories, and I realized, oh shit, we have a big issue. And since then, we are working on IT resiliency and redundancy of infrastructure in the factory. So we are building dual OT network, everything dual, so that we can intervene on patching one set of network switches, for example, while the other one is still working and we don't stop the factory. So that's a plan. That's a plan we have in place. It's still work in progress because it's a lot of work and a lot of investment, but that's where we are targeting for the legacy factories, and the new one will be completely fully redundant.
Stephane, I think a lot of people have that oh shit moment when they come into dairy and see all the complexities in a 24/7 environment. So I'm sure there's some peers of yours that would love to commiserate with you.
And the cost of a shutdown, right?
Yeah,
That's huge.
Meeghan, Anna?
So we have steering committee. We have IT steering committee that meets every 2 weeks.
Okay.
And what we do is we negotiate the downtime with each plant individually. So we actually align with their maintenance calendars and with their changeovers. So what I ask is, when are you going to be down? And then I say, okay, during this time, depending on why you're down, can I do X, Y, and Z? And then we put it on the calendar. So we have an IT maintenance calendar. We track all of our outages there, and we negotiate the downtime with the impacted audience.
Got it. Meeghan?
Yeah, ours, it's a constant battle and a constant, the milk never stops flowing. We know that. And what are those downtimes? Sometimes we hear there's downtime window at the plant, but then is there power still? Is there a power, right? All the components.
Right.
So we have worked similarly with a couple, it's almost like system, depending on what we're doing, that's what we're negotiating, that we say, yes, we need it for X, Y, Z. But also trying to be redundant in the plants. And so we're working to get that so that it's, it's maybe a 15 minutes. Isn't there a changeover at some point? So I'm trying to work through that process, as well as being able to do more remote. There's certain things that we've always been able to do remote, and a few more things we've been challenged with. So yeah, it's just that balance of, I push back on my team, or how are we going to set up our infrastructure to enable the plants not to require downtime? Right. Could that be an option? Just trying to think differently. Because it's the reality of the milk continuing to flow and product getting out the door.
Yep. Simone, maybe I'll start with you on this question, but I love the practical nature of the question because we want you to come away with some insights here. So what insights can you provide on how an organization can leverage IT for some of its product quality assurance needs?
Yeah, right now we are doing digital forms, like a lot of different companies are, and we went big at first. It was like, yeah, we're going to do every form in manufacturing, and that kind of took too long, was expensive, didn't go very well, and so we actually took it back to quality is important. How can we just take some of the things that we know are standard that would really help us have better visibility for quality, to know that we're getting things done and that we're taking care of things. So we actually employed digital forms in a few areas, Appendix N in milk receiving, because that's standardized. That's something we need to make sure that we always have done from a regulatory standpoint. And if it's digital, we can know when we're not doing it instead of having reams of paper. So we've implemented that from a quality standpoint, also around lab calibrations and all of that, and standardizing that and doing it digitally. So we also know that our calibrations are being done on a routine basis, and we're not relying on folks doing it, saying they're doing it, but we're actually gathering the data, making sure they're done, and using that to help us. And then also from a shipping standpoint, we're doing digital forms in trailer inspections, things like that, and we have internal fleet, so it's helping us as we do that to capture it electronically so that we can automatically get out to our fleet department. Hey, we saw that there's damage to the inside of a trailer that's causing our product to be damaged. We're having issues, and it's automatically sending out emails to our fleet department to get in front of it so we don't continue to have labor wasted to repair those things, but also not to lose product quality by having damaged bags, as an example. So that's how we're using some technology for quality.
Love it. Anyone else want to weigh in? Anna, I may give you one hardball. I know who you report into, and I know you've got a great relationship with your CFO, but we constantly talk about new and better systems. I am largely concerned, whoever wrote this, I am largely concerned about the new technical debt. How do you manage these debts responsibly?
So I will say what my interpretation of technical debt is. Let's see. I think, okay, so I would say you have to think with risk in mind. So where do you spend your money to get the most value out of it? That takes the edge off, the pain off of the debt side of it, right? If you're constantly sure that you're spending your money in the right place, and if more importantly, there's alignment across leadership that you're spending your money in the right place, it's not technical debt anymore, it's an opportunity. So for me, so to explain, so I report to our CFO, Cami Garofolo. We have a very good relationship. We operate in a lot of the same ways, which is to say that I'm telling her a year, 2 years, 3 years in advance what we need to do. And so we both have time to gain the alignment that we need to get the support to move forward. So as such, we don't necessarily have like pet projects, right? We're actually getting way in advance of the changes that need to be made, and there's broad agreement that it's the right change. So that's how I would flip it. So instead of looking at it as technical debt, look at it as we're attacking this business opportunity in the right time frame, and here is the cost of that opportunity.
Fantastic. If there are any last words, any last pearls of wisdom before we close? I want to thank you all for joining us today, for really giving our audience some practical insights into your business, for sharing some best practices, some trials, some tribulations, but really your outlook on what the art of the possible is. So please join me in thanking our panel today.